Hello, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we will bring you a romantic love story. So let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. It was a cold October evening in New York, and the air outside glowed with lights from the Plaza Hotel, where a lavish charity gala was underway. This was the most prestigious annual event for the elite, where tycoons, politicians, and celebrities gathered to flaunt their wealth, power, and so-called generosity, though most of it was purely for show. The grand ballroom was magnificently decorated with enormous crystal chandeliers hanging from the soaring ceiling, their golden light reflecting off the gleaming marble floor. Round tables draped in white silk cloths were adorned with fresh flowers and flickering candles, while soft symphony music floated from a live orchestra tucked in the corner. Guests in expensive gowns and custom-tailored suits moved from one calculated conversation to another, their eyes sparkling more with ambition than sincerity. Into this world of opulence stepped Amelia Hart, feeling like a small fish tossed into an ocean of sharks. At 28, Amelia was the secret heiress of Hart Industries, a powerful philanthropic empire, yet she had always chosen to live simply, away from the spotlight. She didn't like events like this, where people competed to showcase themselves rather than genuinely care about those in need. But tonight, she was here for one reason only. The charity fund she had been quietly supporting needed backing, and she wanted to see firsthand that the donations would be put to good use. Amelia wore a dress she had sewn herself over the past week, a soft, pale blue silk dress that fell to her knees, with simple yet elegant lines. She wore minimal makeup, just a touch of light pink lipstick, and let her long brown hair fall naturally in soft waves down her back. Around her wrist was an old silver bracelet, a keepsake from her late adoptive mother, who had taught her that true worth was found in the heart, not in appearances. Yet in this extravagant space, Amelia's dress became the center of attention, but not in the way she had hoped. She had barely set foot in the ballroom for 5 minutes when she caught the whispers from a nearby group of women. They were clad in glittering Swarovski-studded gowns, their hair styled in elaborate updos, sparkling with expensive jewelry under the lights. "Look at her! What is she even wearing? Who invited her?" One blonde woman, around 30, whispered loudly enough for Amelia to hear. Another, holding a champagne flute, giggled, probably a lost server. "Look at that homemade dress, like something a child would make." Soft, knife-like laughter rippled through the group, making Amelia freeze in place, her hands clenching the edge of her dress. She stood there silently, bearing it, a wave of loneliness washing over her in a sea of shallow people. Amelia was no stranger to ridicule. She had heard it her whole life growing up in an orphanage, mocked for her worn-out clothes and hand-me-down shoes. Even after becoming the heiress of Hart Industries, she chose to live modestly, never letting cruelty shake her belief in kindness. Yet tonight, in this unfamiliar world, the whispered scorn still managed to sting. Bowing her head, she tried to find a hidden corner, away from the prying eyes, but the murmurs kept following her like shadows. "So shameful, showing up here dressed like that?" Another voice chimed in. A middle-aged woman, her neck adorned with a dazzling diamond necklace. "Does she think this is some flea market?" Amelia drew a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but she couldn't stop her eyes from blurring with tears. She wasn't crying out of hurt. She was crying from the overwhelming sense of not belonging, of being an outsider in a world that would never truly accept her, even if her bank account boasted billions. Quietly, she drifted toward the edge of the room, near the display tables showcasing charity auction items, luxuries like limited edition handbags and paintings worth millions. Amelia gazed at them, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of the orphans she had met during her charity trips, of their radiant smiles when they received a new book or a warm meal. That was why she was here, not to show off, not for recognition. Yet standing amid the glittering crowd, she felt more like a misfit than ever, judged for not blending into the false glamour. Meanwhile, from another corner of the ballroom, Lucas Ethan Cole leaned casually against a wall, a glass of red wine in his hand, his cold eyes sweeping over the crowd. At 32, Ethan was the CEO of Cole Enterprises, a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, Known not only for his striking looks, neatly combed black hair, chiseled features, and deep brown eyes, but also for his ruthless business tactics. He had built a reputation as a man who never compromised, who always put profits first, and who despised the hypocrisy of high society. He disliked events like these, but attended for the sake of his company's image, and because a small part of him still hoped to find something real amidst the sea of fake smiles. He had noticed Amelia the moment she entered the ballroom. Not because of her simple dress, though it clearly didn't belong here, but because of her eyes. Amelia's blue eyes didn't shine with ambition or arrogance like the others. They held a softness, a sincerity that he rarely saw in his world. When he overheard the mocking comments from the nearby women, and when he saw Amelia bow her head and clutch the edge of her dress, a rare feeling stirred within him, a surge of discomfort. Ethan wasn't used to feeling discomfort for others. He always maintained his distance, always kept his emotions in check. But there was something about Amelia that made him restless. A girl with a handmade dress and quiet dignity didn't deserve to be treated that way. Not at a charity event, where compassion was supposed to be the focus, not judgment. He took a slow sip of his wine, his sharp brown eyes scanning the crowd, and deep inside a quiet decision formed. Amelia, still standing alone near the auction table, had no idea that one of the most powerful men in the room had his gaze locked on her. She had no idea that within minutes her life was about to change. Not because of the cruel whispers, but because of a hand that would reach out to hers, pulling her out of the shadows and into the light, before the stunned eyes of everyone around. Amelia Hart stood pressed against a corner of the charity gala at the Plaza Hotel, her quiet gaze directed toward the laughing, chattering elite. The cruel whispers from a group of women nearby still rang in her ears, each word like a tiny dagger piercing her heart. "Look at her! What on earth is she wearing?" One voice sneered, followed by a chorus of mocking giggles. "Must have wandered in from somewhere. Just look at that homemade dress." Another chimed in, her tone sharp. Amelia bowed her head, her hands clutching the hem of her self-made pale blue silk dress, struggling to stay composed. But she couldn't shake the overwhelming loneliness engulfing her. She didn't belong here, in this glittering, false world where charity was just another excuse to flaunt power and fame. Meanwhile, Lucas Ethan Cole had just wrapped up a brief conversation with a business associate, his sharp brown eyes scanning the ballroom with detached indifference. He was about to leave. Events like this always wearied him, when a glance from across the room made him pause. It was the look of a young woman standing in the corner, her blue eyes holding a tenderness he rarely saw amidst such pretense. Ethan didn't know who she was, but the way she bowed her head, her hands trembling as they clutched her dress, told him all he needed to know about the silent hurt she was trying to hide. He stood there, a glass of red wine in hand, his gaze fixed on the unfamiliar girl. He couldn't make out the words being whispered about her, but he could feel the injustice in the way the others stared. Judging eyes, mocking smiles, whispered cruelty. A rare feeling rose in Ethan's chest. Discomfort. He was a man who usually kept a cold distance from the emotions of others, a master of self-control. But tonight, something about this girl refused to let him turn away. Setting down his wine glass, his brown eyes darkening with quiet anger, Ethan decided he couldn't stand by and watch any longer. He began to move, each step firm, decisive, as he strode directly toward Amelia. The crowd seemed to part for him instinctively. No one dared block the path of Lucas Ethan Cole, the most powerful man in the room, a man whose mere glance could make seasoned rivals tremble. Guests turned to watch, curiosity sparking in their eyes, wondering what the famously cold tycoon was about to do. Amelia, still with her head bowed, didn't notice him until a pair of polished leather shoes stopped right in front of her. She looked up, her wide blue eyes startled to find a tall, commanding man in a perfectly tailored black suit standing before her. He bent slightly, his deep brown eyes soft and warm, a striking contrast to the cold authority he radiated. "May I have this dance?" he asked, his voice low and courteous, one hand extended toward her, waiting. Amelia gaped at him, utterly stunned, unable to believe what she had just heard. She glanced at his outstretched hand, then back at his face. a face so handsome it made her heart stutter. He was tall, his black hair neatly styled, his chiseled features perfectly framed by the golden light, and his deep brown eyes locked onto her with an earnestness she couldn't understand. I, I don't know how to dance, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper, her cheeks flushing pink with embarrassment. Ethan gave a small smile, a rare, warm, reassuring smile that seemed to slow the entire world around them. That's all right. I'll lead, he said, his voice low and kind. Before she could refuse, Ethan gently took her hand, his touch warm and steady, and guided her toward the dance floor. The entire ballroom seemed to fall silent. The whispers stopped. The judging eyes turned into stunned stares. Lucas Ethan Cole, the most powerful man in the room, a man known for never dancing at charity events, had just asked an unknown girl in a simple handmade blue dress to dance. The women who had mocked Amelia only minutes before now stood frozen, their champagne flutes trembling slightly. A middle-aged man nearby whispered to his companion, "Is that Ethan Cole? What the hell is he doing?" A woman answered, her voice dripping with envy. "Who is she to catch his attention?" Sensing the significance of the moment, the live orchestra began playing a soft waltz, the gentle melody filling the vast space. Other couples on the dance floor automatically stepped aside, making room for Ethan and Amelia, while hundreds of curious eyes followed their every move. Ethan placed one hand lightly at Amelia's waist, the other holding her hand, and led her into a slow, graceful dance, as if she were the centerpiece of the entire evening. At first, Amelia moved awkwardly, her body stiff with nerves, but Ethan's patience and gentleness gradually helped her relax. She looked up at him, her wide blue eyes full of uncertainty, and a silent gratitude she couldn't express. Ethan guided her gently across the floor, each of his steps steady, effortless. He wasn't someone who danced often. He disliked public displays, disliked the spotlight. But tonight he wanted to dance for her. He wanted her to feel seen, valued, even if only for a fleeting moment. "You all right?" he asked quietly, his deep voice rumbling over the strains of the waltz, his brown eyes never leaving hers. I'm not used to this," Amelia whispered, barely audible. Ethan smiled again, squeezing her hand lightly. "Just follow my lead," he murmured. Their dance wasn't flawless. Amelia stumbled once or twice, nearly stepping on his foot, but Ethan showed no irritation. Instead, he adjusted his steps to match hers, guiding her with infinite patience, as if the two of them existed in a world apart from the jealousy and judgment swirling around them. Slowly, Amelia began to feel warmth spreading from his touch, dissolving the loneliness she had carried all evening. She looked up at him, truly looked into his deep brown eyes for the first time, and in that moment, she no longer felt like an outsider. She felt seen, she felt cherished, even if it was just for one dance. Jealous glances and muttered comments rippled through the crowd. The blonde woman who had earlier mocked Amelia whispered furiously to her friend, "How the hell did she get Ethan Cole to dance with her? He never dances with anyone." Another voice, thick with bitterness, added, "It must be some joke. A country nobody like her doesn't deserve a man like him." But Ethan didn't seem to hear them, or care. His entire focus was on Amelia, his gaze steady, soft, and unwavering, as if the rest of the world had ceased to exist. As the music came to an end, Ethan gracefully dipped his head and pressed a light, respectful kiss to the back of Amelia's hand. "Thank you for dancing with me," he murmured. A round of applause erupted through the ballroom, partly out of politeness, mostly out of sheer astonishment at Ethan's actions. Yet even amid the applause, Amelia could still hear the jealous whispers and feel the judgmental stares. She blushed, bowing her head, uncertain what to do next. Ethan, sensing her unease, gently placed a hand on her shoulder and led her off the dance floor, his gaze promising her that this was far from the end. Amelia's heart was a storm of emotions, grateful, confused, and overwhelmed. She had no idea that this dance had just opened a brand new chapter of her life. She didn't yet know that the man who had taken her hand tonight, before the stunned eyes of a merciless crowd, would soon become the most important person in her heart. The gentle waltz from the live orchestra floated through the charity gala at the Plaza Hotel, wrapping Amelia Hart and Lucas Ethan Cole in a delicate cocoon at the center of the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers hanging from the soaring ceilings cast shimmering light onto Amelia's handmade pale blue silk dress. But for once, the dazzling surroundings no longer made her feel out of place. It wasn't the lavish setting that brought her comfort. It was Ethan's warm hand holding hers, and the deep, gentle gaze of his brown eyes that she couldn't begin to understand. At first, Amelia felt stiff and awkward as Ethan led her into the dance. She had never danced in front of a crowd before, let alone among the upper crust, with hundreds of curious eyes following their every step. Her legs trembled and she stumbled a few times, nearly stepping on Ethan's foot. I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible, her cheeks flushing pink with embarrassment. But Ethan didn't flinch. He simply smiled softly, his hand giving hers a reassuring squeeze. "It's all right, just relax," he said, his deep voice a warm breeze easing her tension as the waltz continued. Gradually, Amelia began to relax under Ethan's steady warmth and patience. He led her with ease, his steps strong and rhythmic, as if he had danced 1,000 times before. But the truth was, Ethan rarely danced. He disliked being the center of attention and had little interest in the showmanship of it all. Tonight, though, he danced for her. He wanted her to feel seen, to feel valued, even if just for one brief dance. He adjusted his steps to match hers, moving with her slowly, patiently, as if they were in a world all their own, shielded from the envious eyes and hushed whispers surrounding them. Amelia felt warmth spreading from his touch, melting away the loneliness that had weighed on her all evening. She looked up at him, truly looked into his deep brown eyes, and in that moment, she no longer felt like an outsider. She felt seen, cherished, even if it was just for this short dance. What surprised her even more was the way Ethan looked at her, not with cold detachment or condescension like most upper-class men, but with an earnest tenderness that made her heart stumble. As he led her, Ethan couldn't take his eyes off her either. He found himself intrigued by this simple girl who radiated a quiet strength and warmth so rare in his world of pretenders. In his circles, everything was masks and motives, but Amelia was different. She was something real. "Did you come here alone?" he asked, his deep voice threading through the music, his brown eyes never leaving hers. Amelia gave a small, soft smile, gentle but evasive. "Yes, I came to support the charity," she answered, her voice light but firm, offering nothing more. Ethan frowned slightly, sensing the guardedness in her response. He wasn't easily drawn to people. He had learned to be wary, knowing most approached him for his wealth or influence. But something about Amelia made him want to know more. "You're not like the others here," he said, his voice low and curious, a hint of amusement flickering in his eyes. "I mean, you're not trying to show off anything." Amelia gave a quiet laugh, lowering her gaze to hide the slight twinkle in her blue eyes. "I don't think showing off proves anything," she replied softly but with quiet confidence. "I prefer simpler things." Her words caught Ethan off guard. He was used to women trying desperately to impress him, with glittering jewels, designer gowns, or polished words. But Amelia wasn't trying to impress anyone. She didn't flaunt, didn't posture, and her sincerity pulled him in even more. She was a rare truth in a world of constant lies. "You're an interesting person," he said, his deep voice carrying a faint, genuine interest, his brown eyes studying her carefully. "What's your name?" Amelia looked up, her blue eyes locking with his, but she didn't answer right away. She smiled, a soft, secretive smile, as if hiding something precious just beyond his reach. "Amelia," she finally said, her voice gentle but clear. "Just Amelia." Ethan narrowed his eyes slightly, sensing there was more she wasn't saying, but he didn't push. He had the distinct feeling that this woman carried a secret he couldn't even begin to guess, and the mystery only made him more intrigued. As they continued dancing, Ethan felt something stir inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. He was drawn not just to Amelia's beauty, but to her honesty, her quiet resilience, her refusal to play the games everyone else seemed to relish. In his world, people wore masks so often they forgot who they really were. But Amelia wore no mask. She simply was. Amelia, meanwhile, couldn't deny the unfamiliar feelings growing inside her. Ethan's kindness and patience made her feel safe, as if she could simply be herself without judgment. She looked up at him, her blue eyes sparkling under the crystal lights, and in that moment, she felt her heart beat differently, an uncertain, thrilling rhythm she didn't fully understand. She didn't know who he was, didn't know he was Lucas Ethan Cole, the most powerful man in the ballroom, but she could feel something real in his eyes, a warmth that had nothing to do with status or wealth. As the music neared its end, Ethan spun her gently, his hand firm at her waist to steady her. Amelia gave a small laugh, the first laugh she had allowed herself all evening, as if for a brief moment the weight of judgment and loneliness had vanished. Ethan looked at her, his brown eyes alight with quiet amusement, and something deeper, something he didn't yet understand. "You dance well," he said with a teasing edge to his voice. Amelia blushed, shaking her head. "No, I'm terrible. You're just good at leading." Ethan chuckled softly, a rare, genuine sound that made Amelia's heart skip. "I think you're wonderful," he said, his voice low and sincere, his brown eyes never leaving hers. As the final notes of the waltz drifted away, Ethan dipped his head and placed a light kiss on the back of her hand. "Thank you for the dance, Amelia," he whispered. The ballroom erupted into applause, some out of politeness, some out of sheer astonishment. Amelia blushed deeply, lowering her gaze, unsure what to do next. Ethan, sensing her uncertainty, gently placed a hand on her shoulder and guided her off the dance floor, his look silently promising her that this was far from the end. Amelia had no idea that this dance had just opened a brand new chapter of her life, nor did she realize that the most powerful man in the ballroom tonight, the man who had so publicly taken her hand, was already captivated by the very things she kept hidden, her sincerity, and a secret that even he couldn't yet foresee. The morning after the lavish charity gala at the Plaza Hotel, the New York sky was unusually clear. Early sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a soft glow over the quiet suburban streets where a small orphanage, Sunshine Haven, nestled peacefully. Sunshine Haven was a modest place, its pale yellow walls faded with time, a small playground echoing with children's laughter, and a tiny garden where the kids grew vegetables to help feed themselves. This was where Amelia Hart spent most of her free time, a place where her heart truly belonged. Not the glittering high society galas, but these simple, genuine moments with children who needed her most. That Saturday morning, as usual, Amelia arrived early at the orphanage. She wore a simple white shirt, worn-out jeans, and an old pair of sneakers. Her brown hair was tied up in a loose bun, with a few strands escaping to dance in the breeze. In her hands was a small bucket filled with seeds and gardening tools, ready for a planting activity with the kids. "Miss Amelia, what are we planting today?" A little girl around 7 years old, her black hair in two neat braids, ran up to her, eyes sparkling with excitement. Amelia smiled warmly, ruffling the girl's hair. "Today we're planting zucchini," she said gently. "Want to help me?" The girl nodded eagerly, tugging Amelia toward the small garden where a group of children had already gathered, their laughter filling the morning air. Meanwhile, Lucas Ethan Cole was driving through the suburbs, his sharp brown eyes gazing thoughtfully out the window. Since the charity event the night before, he hadn't been able to get Amelia, the girl with the handmade dress and gentle eyes, out of his mind. Ethan wasn't a man easily haunted by anyone, but there was something about her, something real, something pure, that lingered like a melody he couldn't shake. He hadn't planned on visiting the suburbs that morning. He had simply needed a break from the chaos of the city. But fate had other plans. His assistant had messaged him, reminding him that one of Cole Enterprises' sponsored charities was hosting an event at a local orphanage, and they had requested his visit. Normally, Ethan would have just sent a donation and stayed away from the spotlight, but today something compelled him to go. Pulling up to Sunshine Haven, Ethan parked his car and adjusted the collar of his black dress shirt. He scanned the surroundings with sharp, cautious eyes. The sound of children's laughter drifted from the garden, pulling his attention. Ethan walked toward the source of the laughter and stopped dead in his tracks. There, kneeling in the dirt among the children, was Amelia. Not Amelia in a silk dress, not the polished heiress he might have expected from the night before, but an entirely different Amelia. She wore a simple white shirt and faded jeans, her hands dusty as she helped the kids plant vegetables. Her face was smudged with dirt, her hair windswept and loose, but her smile, her radiant, genuine smile, was brighter than any crystal chandelier he had seen at the gala. "Miss Amelia, I did it!" a little boy around 5 shouted, holding up a newly planted sprout. Amelia laughed, ruffling his hair. "Good job, Tommy. Now let's water it together, okay?" Ethan stood frozen, unable to tear his eyes away. He watched as she knelt down with the kids, as she picked up a picture book and read aloud with warmth and patience, her voice carrying a soothing gentleness. "Miss Amelia, where did the bunny go?" one little girl asked, pointing at a colorful illustration. Amelia smiled and said, "He went to find new friends, just like you found your friends here. And we're friends too, aren't we?" The girl nodded enthusiastically and hugged her, laughter ringing out across the garden. Something stirred deep inside Ethan, a mixture of surprise and admiration. He had met countless people in the upper echelons of society, those who loved to boast about their charity work, yet rarely lifted a finger themselves. But Amelia was different. She wasn't here for photos or accolades. She was here because she cared. He stepped closer, careful not to disrupt the scene. But one little boy spotted him and shouted, "Miss Amelia, there's a handsome man coming." Amelia looked up, and her wide blue eyes widened in shock when she saw Ethan. Scrambling to her feet, she brushed dirt from her jeans, her face flushing red with embarrassment. What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice small, her eyes shimmering with both surprise and worry. Ethan smiled softly, his brown eyes locked on her. "I'm here to check on a charity project my company sponsors," he said, his voice low and sincere. "But I didn't expect to run into you. Amelia, right?" Amelia nodded, her gaze shifting slightly as if still guarding a part of herself. "Yes, I come here often to help," she said, her voice soft but firm. "The kids here need a lot of support." Ethan studied her, a spark of amusement flickering in his eyes. "I can see that," he said, his tone tinged with gentle teasing. "But I must admit, I didn't expect the girl who danced the waltz at the plaza to also know how to garden and teach children." Amelia blushed, bowing her head to hide a small smile. "I'm not very good at waltzing. You saw that," she said, her voice light but confident. "But I'm good with kids. They make me feel real." Her words caught Ethan off guard. He was used to women trying to impress him, with glittering jewelry, grand gowns, and polished conversation. But Amelia didn't try to impress him at all. She didn't try to show off anything, and it was that very authenticity that pulled him in. In a world of artifice, Amelia was real. Ethan sat down beside her, his brown eyes following the laughing children. "You're making me rethink a lot of things," he said, his voice deep and thoughtful. "I used to think wealth was power, money, fame. But seeing you here, it feels like wealth means something else." Amelia turned toward him, her blue eyes sparkling with surprise. "True wealth isn't about what you have," she said gently. "It's about what you give. I don't need fame or fortune to feel valuable. I just need to see smiles like these." Her words left Ethan silent. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just kindness, but strength, conviction, something rare and extraordinary. He had met countless people in his life, but no one had made him question the meaning of wealth and worth the way Amelia just did. Ethan rose to his feet, his brown eyes never leaving her. "You're a very special person, Amelia," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I hope we meet again." Amelia smiled, her blue eyes warm and glowing. "I hope so too," she replied, her voice soft but clear. She had no idea that this unexpected encounter, whether fate or mere coincidence, was opening a brand new chapter in her life. She also didn't know that the powerful man standing before her, the same man who had taken her hand on the dance floor, would soon become the... A week after the charity gala at the plaza and the unexpected meeting at Sunshine Haven Orphanage, Amelia Hart received another invitation, this time for a charity auction at the Waldorf Astoria, an even grander venue. The card arrived with a handwritten note. We look forward to the presence of the young woman who inspired so many at the last gala. Amelia read the line over and over, her blue eyes shimmering with a mix of surprise and worry. She wasn't sure what awaited her, but after some thought, she decided to attend. Not because she enjoyed these glamorous events, but because she knew the proceeds would go to support orphanages, including Sunshine Haven. That night, Amelia stepped into the ballroom at the Waldorf Astoria, and the familiar sense of feeling out of place rushed over her once again. The hall was lavishly decorated, with fresh flower arrangements hanging from the ceiling, golden candlelight reflecting off crystal glasses, and the soft sound of jazz from a live band filling the air. She wore a cream-colored silk dress, another handmade piece, with simple, elegant lines. Her brown hair was loosely tied back, and around her wrist was the old silver bracelet, a keepsake from her adoptive mother that she always carried. Despite her efforts to prepare herself, the scrutinizing glances from the crowd made her uneasy. She recognized some familiar faces from the last gala, the same women who had mocked her, now whispering among themselves, their eyes sharp with disdain. Amelia tried to find a quiet corner to avoid attention, but the event's host, a middle-aged man with an exuberant voice, stepped onto the stage, drawing everyone's eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice booming through the microphone, excitement glinting in his eyes, "we are about to begin the most special auction of the evening." He grinned widely. "Tonight's prize is a date with a mystery beauty from our last gala, the young woman who captivated us all and danced with none other than Lucas Ethan Cole himself. Please welcome Miss Amelia Hart to the stage." The entire ballroom erupted in applause, mixed with gasps and murmurs of curiosity. Amelia froze, her blue eyes widening in shock, her face burning red with embarrassment. She had no idea about this auction. No one had told her she would be part of it. I didn't," she stammered, but an event staff member gently guided her toward the stage before she could protest. Amelia stood under the bright stage lights, feeling as though the entire world was staring at her. She bowed her head, clutching the hem of her dress tightly, her heart pounding wildly. The host continued enthusiastically, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your chance to win a date with the enchanting Miss Amelia Hart, the woman who captured Mr. Cole's attention. We'll start the bidding at $10,000. Amelia looked up, panic flashing in her blue eyes. A date? With her? She wasn't an object to be auctioned off. But before she could react, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit and a smug smile raised his hand. $20,000. Another man, younger and clearly amused, quickly followed. $30,000. The crowd erupted in cheers and claps, but to Amelia, every bid felt like a knife twisting into her pride. She felt like she was being treated as a joke, as something to be fought over, not someone to be respected. $50,000, another man shouted, his voice filled with self-satisfaction, prompting laughter from his friends. Amelia bowed her head lower, her vision blurring with unshed tears. Still, she refused to cry, refused to let them see her break. The situation quickly grew uncomfortable. The men bidding didn't care about her. They only cared about winning, about showing off to the crowd that they could buy her. From the sidelines, the same blonde woman who had mocked Amelia at the previous gala laughed loudly to her friend. "Look at her. Probably thinks she's special now. Who would even want to date her anyway?" Their laughter rang out, sharp and cutting, making Amelia's heart feel like it was being crushed. She wanted to run, to disappear, but her legs were frozen. Just then, a deep voice rang out from the back of the ballroom, slicing through the noise like a blade. $500,000. The entire room fell silent, as if someone had stolen the very air away. All eyes turned to the source of the voice, Lucas Ethan Cole. He stood tall and commanding in his black tailored suit, his sharp brown eyes sweeping over the crowd without a hint of hesitation. The host stumbled over his words, stunned. $500,000 from Mr. Ethan Cole. Is there anyone willing to bid higher? No one dared. No one would challenge the most powerful man in the room. Before the host could declare the auction closed, Ethan began walking toward the stage, his steps firm, determined. He stopped in front of Amelia, his deep brown eyes locking onto hers, then turned to face the crowd. His voice was low but cutting. "She's not an item for sale." A wave of shocked whispers rippled through the room, but no one dared argue. Ethan turned back to Amelia, his gaze softening, becoming almost tender. "I didn't bid to buy you," he said, his voice low, meant for her ears alone. "I bid so no one else could hurt you." Amelia stood frozen, her wide blue eyes full of stunned emotion, her cheeks flushed. She didn't know what to say. Her heart hammered in her chest, not from shame or embarrassment, but from something new, something unfamiliar. For the first time in her life, she felt truly protected, truly valued, not for wealth or status, but for who she was. Ethan's unexpected action, his quiet fierceness and sincerity, sent a tremor through her heart. She looked at him, her blue eyes glistening with unshed tears, not of sadness, but of something else, a stirring deep inside her she had never felt before. Ethan extended his hand, his brown eyes filled with gentle warmth. "Would you like to leave here?" he asked, his voice low and tender. Amelia hesitated for only a moment, then nodded. Her small hand slipped into his and he grasped it firmly, leading her off the stage. They walked through the stunned crowd, past envious stares and renewed whispers. But Amelia no longer cared. All she felt was the warmth of his hand around hers and a deep, unfamiliar sense of safety. They stepped out into the quiet hallway of the Waldorf Astoria, the golden lights casting a soft glow over them. Ethan turned to her, his brown eyes dark and steady. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low and full of concern. Amelia nodded, her blue eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice small but steady. I don't even know what to say, but thank you for what you did." Ethan smiled slightly, never taking his eyes off her. "You don't have to thank me," he said gently. "I just did what felt right." Amelia looked up at him, her blue eyes sparkling with an emotion she hadn't dared feel before. She didn't know it yet, but this moment was opening a brand new chapter of her life. She also didn't know that the most powerful man in the ballroom, the man who had just defended her before the entire world, was slowly becoming the most important person in her heart. After leaving the stage at the charity auction at the Waldorf Astoria, Amelia Hart and Lucas Ethan Cole stepped into the quiet hallway of the hotel, where the soft golden lights created a warm, peaceful atmosphere, a stark contrast to the noisy, pretentious ballroom behind them. Ethan still held Amelia's hand, his touch steady and reassuring, like a silent promise that she no longer had to face judgmental stares or cruel whispers alone. Amelia lowered her head, her cheeks flushed with a mixture of emotions, her heart still pounding from Ethan's unexpected action. How he had protected her, boldly declaring that she was not something to be bought or sold. Ethan guided her toward a secluded corner of the hallway, where a long velvet bench sat by a large window overlooking the sparkling streets of New York. The city glittered under the night sky, but in this small space there was only quiet, in the presence of two people. He released her hand, his deep brown eyes gentle as he asked, "Are you sure you're all right? I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Amelia looked up, her blue eyes shimmering with gratitude, yet tinged with lingering worry. I'm fine," she whispered, her voice soft but clear. I didn't expect you to do that. Thank you. Really." Ethan smiled softly, sitting down on the bench and gesturing for her to join him. "I couldn't just stand there and watch them treat you like that," he said, his voice low and sincere. "You didn't deserve to be turned into some kind of spectacle." Amelia sat down beside him, her hands nervously clasped together in her lap, her blue eyes cast downward, deep in thought. She wasn't used to being protected. She wasn't used to anyone standing up for her the way Ethan had. In her world, a world where she had always chosen to live simply and quietly give, she was used to facing challenges alone. But tonight, for the first time, her heart trembled at the kindness of a man she barely knew. Ethan watched her closely, his brown eyes tracing the delicate lines of her face, sensing the guardedness she carried. He had been drawn to her the night of the gala at the plaza, and their unexpected reunion at Sunshine Haven had only deepened his curiosity. There was something hidden behind her gentle eyes, something he couldn't yet reach. "You don't have to tell me anything if you're not ready," he said, his voice low and understanding. "But I'd like to know you better, Amelia. Who, who are you, really?" Amelia lifted her head, her blue eyes meeting his, and in that moment, she felt the sincerity radiating from him. She offered him a small, gentle smile, a smile that hinted she wasn't ready to reveal everything, but maybe a part of it. "I'm just an ordinary person," she said quietly but clearly. "I like simple things, helping children at orphanages, volunteering at charity events. There's nothing special about me." Ethan frowned slightly, the curiosity in his brown eyes sharpening. "You're not ordinary," he said, his voice firm and steady. "I've met hundreds of people in my life, and none of them are like you. You have a heart. I don't even know how to explain it, but I can feel it." Amelia blushed faintly, her blue eyes glancing down, but she didn't shy away. She took a deep breath, as if weighing a decision, and finally chose to share a piece of her story. "I used to be an orphan," she began, her voice soft but unwavering, her eyes growing distant as old memories stirred. "I grew up in an orphanage outside New York. No parents, no family, just other kids like me. Life wasn't easy. We often didn't have enough to eat or wear, and I was teased a lot for my old clothes and broken shoes. But I never hated my life. I always believed that no matter how hard things got, there was still good in the world worth hoping for." Ethan listened intently, his brown eyes never leaving her face. His heart stirred with something unfamiliar, a deep, aching respect. He had heard endless tales of power and wealth from the elite circles he moved in, but Amelia's story was different. It was real, raw, and it pulled at him in ways he couldn't explain. "When I was 12, a woman came to the orphanage," Amelia continued, her voice growing softer but filled with emotion. "She was different from anyone I'd ever met, kind, generous, and full of heart. She adopted me, brought me home, and gave me a family I never thought I'd have. She taught me that the greatest wealth isn't money or fame, but kindness. She said if I could make even one person's life better, then that would be the most valuable thing I could ever do." Amelia smiled wistfully, her blue eyes glistening as she spoke of the woman who had changed her life. Yet she didn't reveal the full truth, not yet. She didn't tell Ethan that the woman who adopted her had been a billionaire, the matriarch of Hart Industries, who had passed away a few years ago, leaving Amelia a vast fortune. Amelia had chosen to hide her true identity, not because she didn't trust Ethan, but because she wanted him to see her as she was. Not an heiress, not a fortune, just a girl with a heart determined to do good. "I decided to live my life giving back," Amelia said, her voice gaining strength. "To help others, the way she helped me. I don't need recognition. I just want to do the right thing. Whether it's helping kids at an orphanage or making sure charity money actually reaches the people who need it." Ethan sat silently, absorbing every word. His heart, long frozen by years of ruthless business dealings and fake smiles, thawed a little more with each syllable she spoke. He had lived in a world of facades and hidden agendas. He had learned to protect himself, to distrust, to never let anyone close. But Amelia was different. Her story, her sincerity, her unwavering kindness, everything about her chipped away at the walls he had built. "You're truly special, Amelia," Ethan said finally, his voice thick with emotion, his brown eyes shining with respect. "I've met hundreds of people, but no one has ever made me rethink what truly matters. Until you." Amelia looked up, her blue eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and quiet joy. "I'm not special," she said softly. "I'm just doing what feels right." Ethan smiled, a rare, genuine smile that softened his entire face. "No," he said, his voice deep and firm. "You are special. You have a heart I've never seen in anyone else, and I want to know more about you, if you'll let me." Amelia blushed again, but she didn't look away. Instead, she offered him a soft, meaningful smile, one that hinted at the possibility of trust, of something more. She didn't know it yet, but sharing her story had just opened a new chapter in their relationship. Nor did she realize that the most powerful man from the gala, the one sitting beside her now, was slowly but surely being captivated by her hidden heart, a heart unlike anything he had ever encountered in his world. After the charity auction at the Waldorf Astoria, the budding relationship between Amelia Hart and Lucas Ethan Cole quickly became the hottest topic among New York's elite. Images of Ethan holding Amelia's hand, leading her protectively off the stage, had flooded the tabloids and social media, accompanied by sensational headlines like "Billionaire Ethan Cole defends mystery girl at charity auction," or "Unknown beauty captures the heart of CEO Lucas Ethan Cole." But what stirred the public more than Ethan's unexpected action was the mystery surrounding Amelia Hart, the simple girl in a self-made dress who had managed to draw the attention of one of the most powerful men in the city. The financial world buzzed with relentless gossip. At cocktail parties, in exclusive clubs, and behind the closed doors of corporate boardrooms, Amelia's name was spoken with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "Who does she think she is, stepping into our world?" sneered a middle-aged investor, one who had once bid during the auction. "She's probably just another gold digger," a woman who had openly mocked Amelia at the previous gala added bitterly. "Ethan Cole's just playing around. He couldn't possibly be serious about a nobody like her." The rumors and whispers spread rapidly from opulent soirees to cheap tabloids, casting Amelia into an unwanted spotlight, but not in a way she had ever sought. Ethan, as CEO of Cole Enterprises, was no stranger to media scrutiny and business rivalries. He had learned to navigate the constant attention with indifference. But this time, it was different, because Amelia was dragged into it too. He hadn't anticipated that his sincere attempt to protect her would make her a target for public cruelty. What angered him more, however, was the reaction from his own family. The Cole family, an old money dynasty with ties to some of the most powerful circles, expressed their disapproval loudly when they learned Ethan had publicly shown affection for Amelia. At a family dinner at the Cole estate in the Upper East Side, his mother, Margaret Cole, a sharp-eyed, silver-haired woman with a commanding presence, did not hold back. "What do you think you're doing, Ethan?" she demanded, her voice icy as she set her wine glass down hard against the table. "Who is that girl you dared to hold hands with in front of the entire elite? Do you realize the damage you're doing to our family's reputation?" Ethan, sitting across from his mother, met her gaze without flinching. "Her name is Amelia Hart," he said, his voice low but resolute. "And I don't care about the family's reputation. I care about her." Margaret's frown deepened, her eyes glinting with disapproval. "Don't be naive, Ethan," she snapped. "She's a nobody. No background, no connections, nothing to offer a family like ours. You need someone who matches our standing. Someone who strengthens Cole Enterprises, not a common girl who spends her time playing charity games." Under the table, Ethan's hand clenched into a fist. His brown eyes darkened with silent anger. He was used to his family's controlling ways. His mother had long planned for him to marry into another wealthy dynasty. But this time, he couldn't comply. "She's not a common girl," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. "She has a heart you'll never understand, and I won't let this family decide who I can or cannot love." Margaret sat back in her chair, her lips tightening into a thin line. She said nothing more, but Ethan knew this wasn't the end of it. His family would not give up easily. Meanwhile, the pressure from the press on Amelia grew mercilessly. After the auction, tabloids began digging into her life, twisting whatever details they could find. Screaming headlines like, "Gold digger Amelia Hart, the common girl who snagged billionaire Ethan Cole," and "Amelia Hart, angel of charity or social climber," splattered across gossip sites. They photographed her leaving Sunshine Haven Orphanage, shopping at the local farmer's market, even sitting alone on a park bench, her blue eyes lost in thought. Articles painted her as a schemer who had manipulated Ethan to climb the social ladder. Despite the truth that Amelia had never even revealed her real identity, the heiress to the Hart Industries fortune. Reading those headlines on her phone, Amelia's blue eyes dimmed with sadness. But she didn't cry. She didn't issue statements or try to defend herself. Instead, she chose silence, because she knew who she was, and she refused to seek validation from people who didn't truly see her. Rather than let the criticism break her, Amelia immersed herself in what mattered, her work at Sunshine Haven. She spent her days planting gardens with the children, reading them stories, cooking meals, proving her worth through actions, not words. One afternoon at the orphanage, Amelia was kneeling in the dirt with the children, helping them plant a new row of carrots, when she heard a familiar, deep voice behind her. "Can I help?" Ethan asked. Amelia looked up, her blue eyes wide with surprise, then softened into a smile so gentle it made Ethan's heart hammer in his chest. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice small but clear, the surprise twinkling in her eyes. Ethan crouched beside her, never taking his eyes off her. "I came to see you," he said simply. "I read the articles, and I know they've been cruel. I'm sorry, Amelia. I never meant for my actions to bring this down on you." Amelia shook her head, a soft sadness crossing her face, though her smile remained. "It's not your fault," she said, her voice calm. "I'm used to cruel words. I don't care what they think, as long as I know I'm doing the right thing." Ethan looked at her, his brown eyes full of admiration and something deeper. "You're unlike anyone I've ever known," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "They call you a gold digger, but I know you're not. You have a heart unlike anything I've ever seen in my world." Amelia's blue eyes shimmered, not from sorrow, but from gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me," she whispered. "But you don't have to protect me, Ethan. I can take care of myself." Ethan shook his head slowly, his gaze steady and sure. "I know you can," he said. "But I want to be by your side, Amelia. Not because of fame or money, because I care about you. Truly." Amelia lifted her eyes to meet his, and in that moment, she saw nothing but honesty reflected there. Her heart skipped a beat, a strange, thrilling sensation rising inside her. She didn't say anything, only smiled. A quiet, luminous smile that said more than words ever could. Now, she didn't yet know that the prejudice and trials they now faced were only the beginning of a much longer journey. Nor did she realize that the powerful man who stood beside her, the one who had once seemed so distant, would soon become the most important person in her life, and that even greater challenges. 2 weeks after the malicious criticism from the press and the mounting pressure from his family, Amelia Hart continued her volunteer work at Sunshine Haven Orphanage, as if the gossip and whispers had no effect on her. But deep down, the loneliness and pressure gnawed at her. She never spoke of it, not even to Ethan, about the sleepless nights spent reading articles calling her a gold digger, or about the judgmental stares that followed her every time she stepped outside. Amelia chose silence. Yet in her heart, she couldn't deny she was hoping for something, for a sign that she wasn't truly alone. Meanwhile, Ethan Cole couldn't stand to watch Amelia be treated unfairly for another second. He had read the articles, heard the vicious rumors within financial circles, and faced fierce opposition from his own family. But instead of backing down under pressure, he decided to act. He organized a grand charity gala at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, an event that gathered the press, billionaires, and the most powerful figures of New York society. Ethan's goal wasn't just to raise money for charitable foundations. He wanted to do something more. He wanted to place Amelia in the light, to show everyone who she truly was, and prove she was not the gold digger they had painted her to be. That night, the Ritz-Carlton ballroom glittered under the golden glow of massive crystal chandeliers. The marble floors gleamed beneath the reflections of clinking champagne glasses. Amelia stepped into the ballroom, wearing a simple yet elegant white silk dress she had made herself. Her brown hair fell in natural waves, and around her wrist was the old silver bracelet she always wore, a keepsake from her adoptive mother. She had no idea what Ethan had planned, only that his message had been simple. "I want you here, Amelia. Trust me." Amelia lingered quietly near the edge of the ballroom, her blue eyes scanning the crowd. She recognized many familiar faces, the same ones who had sneered and whispered behind her back, and now a few journalists snapping pictures from afar. She lowered her head, clutching the edge of her dress, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, the stage lights flared, and Ethan stepped onto the stage, tall and commanding in a perfectly tailored black suit. He stood there, sweeping the crowd with his sharp brown eyes, radiating cold, undeniable confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his deep voice echoing through the microphone, capturing every gaze in the room. Tonight, we are gathered here to raise funds for those who need it most. But before we begin, I want to introduce someone very special, someone who has changed the way I see kindness and the true meaning of value. Murmurs of curiosity spread across the room, all eyes locking onto him. Ethan turned, his brown eyes softening as they found Amelia, and he extended his hand toward her. "Amelia Hart, would you join me up here?" Amelia froze, her blue eyes wide in astonishment, her cheeks flooding with color. For a brief moment she hesitated, but the gentle encouragement in Ethan's eyes gave her the courage to move. She stepped onto the stage, her legs trembling slightly under the weight of 1,000 stares. When she reached him, Ethan took her hand in his, warm, firm, and reassuring. He turned to the audience, his brown eyes burning with conviction. "I want to introduce to you Amelia Hart," he said, his deep voice resonating across the room. "The most beautiful heart I have ever met." The room erupted into murmured gasps and surprised whispers. All eyes fell on Amelia, some full of awe, others dripping with envy. But Ethan continued, his voice steady, filled with emotion. "She is not the ordinary girl the media has portrayed her to be. She is someone who has dedicated her life to helping others, bringing joy to orphan children, and proving that compassion is the greatest wealth a person can possess." Amelia stood frozen, her blue eyes shimmering with tears, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude and emotion. She never expected Ethan to do this, to introduce her to the world as someone precious, someone worthy. She bowed her head slightly, her cheeks flushed, her heart pounding wildly. She wasn't used to attention. She wasn't used to being honored before a crowd, but the sincerity in Ethan's voice wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Ethan turned to her, his brown eyes softening even more. He tightened his grip on her hand, pulling her closer. And before the stunned crowd, he looked directly into her eyes and said in a deep, unwavering voice, "Amelia, I love you." A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. People stared, frozen in shock. But Ethan didn't waver. His brown eyes remained locked on her, his voice low and filled with raw emotion. "I love you, regardless of the rumors, regardless of wealth or family expectations. You are the most important person in my life, and I want the whole world to know it." Amelia stared at him, stunned, her blue eyes wide with disbelief. She could barely breathe. Ethan, this powerful, untouchable man, had just confessed his love for her in front of the entire New York elite. Her heart hammered not from fear or embarrassment, but from something far deeper, far stronger, an overwhelming feeling she had never experienced before. She looked up at him, her blue eyes shimmering with tears. In that moment, everything else, the whispers, the flashing cameras, the gossip, disappeared. There was only Ethan. Only the sincerity in his gaze, only the warmth in his touch. The room exploded into applause mixed with murmurs of shock and envy. Photographers' flashes went off like fireworks. But Amelia didn't care. She saw only Ethan, the man who stood before her, declaring to the world that she mattered. Ethan smiled, never letting go of her hand. His brown eyes glowed with a promise. He would always stand by her, no matter what storms awaited them. After Ethan's public declaration of love at the Ritz-Carlton Charity Gala, his relationship with Amelia Hart became the center of attention across New York's high society and media. But the brilliance of that moment didn't last long. A dark financial conspiracy from a rival corporation soon surfaced, threatening to destroy everything Ethan and Amelia had built together. Just days after the gala, a series of explosive news articles flooded the media, accusing Ethan of financial fraud and embezzlement through the very charitable funds that Cole Enterprises supported. Headlines screamed, "Ethan Cole exploits charity to cover financial crimes," and "Cole Enterprises faces its greatest scandal yet." Worse still, fabricated evidence emerged suggesting that Amelia was a spy planted to sabotage Ethan's reputation, branding her a traitor intent on toppling Cole Enterprises. Public opinion turned viciously. Social media exploded with malicious comments. "I knew it. She's just another gold digger. Ethan Cole was a fool to let a woman like that manipulate him." The board of directors at Cole Enterprises, already displeased with Ethan's romance with a common girl, immediately pressured him to resign. An internal investigation was launched. Stocks plummeted. The man once seen as an unshakable titan now found himself under relentless attack from all sides. In his office at Cole Enterprises headquarters, Ethan sat alone, his brown eyes dark with tension. He crushed a newspaper in his hand, the headline blaring, "Amelia Hart, traitor or billionaire's lover." Fury and helplessness battled within him. He refused to believe Amelia was a traitor, not for 1 second. He remembered her gentle smile at Sunshine Haven, the way she knelt in the dirt to plant vegetables with the children, the sincerity that lit up her blue eyes when she spoke of her past. "No," Ethan whispered fiercely. "She's not a traitor." But despite his belief, the pressure mounted. Paparazzi hounded Amelia relentlessly, snapping photos of her every time she left the orphanage, twisting her image into that of a scheming social climber. Though Amelia was no stranger to cruel words, this storm was different. It was bigger, it was merciless. She didn't want Ethan to be dragged down because of her. One evening, from her modest apartment in Brooklyn, Amelia called him. Her voice was small but resolute. "Ethan, we should end this," she said quietly. "I don't want you to be hurt because of me." At his office, Ethan closed his eyes, pain flashing across his face. "Amelia, don't," he replied, his deep voice raw with emotion. "I don't care what they say. I believe in you. I'm not letting them tear us apart." But Amelia shook her head, even though he couldn't see it. Her blue eyes shimmered with tears. "I won't let you lose everything because of me," she whispered. "I'll step away. But I won't let them win." Before he could say anything else, she ended the call. Silently, she set a plan into motion. She would fight back. She would uncover the truth behind the accusations. Meanwhile, the pressure on Ethan grew unbearable. The board convened an emergency meeting, demanding he resign to protect the company's reputation. Rival corporations, especially the long-standing enemy Marshall Group, poured more fake evidence into the media, intensifying the storm. Still, Ethan stood firm. He never doubted Amelia. He trusted the heart he had seen in her, the goodness in her gaze, the kindness in her soul. At a board meeting facing the directors, Ethan's brown eyes burned with quiet defiance. "I will not resign," he said, "and I will prove these accusations false." Determined to fight, Ethan arranged a massive press conference at the Four Seasons Hotel. The ballroom was packed with reporters, flashes from cameras firing nonstop. The tension was suffocating. Ethan stepped onto the stage clad in a perfectly tailored black suit. He looked exhausted but unbowed. His deep voice carried across the hushed room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to address the accusations against myself and Cole Enterprises. I did not commit fraud. I did not misuse charitable funds. And regarding Amelia Hart," he paused, pain flickering across his brown eyes as he spoke her name. "She is not a spy. She is the woman I love, and I will not allow anyone to tarnish her." But before Ethan could continue, the heavy ballroom doors swung open with a dramatic crash. Everyone turned. Amelia Hart entered. She no longer wore a simple handmade dress. Tonight, she wore a sleek, powerful black suit. Her brown hair was swept up into a graceful bun. Her blue eyes blazed with strength and determination. She crossed the room, every step sure and purposeful, and climbed the stage to stand beside Ethan. A gasp rippled through the room. Reporters scrambled for their cameras. The flashes exploded like fireworks. Amelia took the microphone from Ethan's hand, her voice small but clear, slicing through the noise. "My name is Amelia Hart, chairwoman of the Hart Foundation, one of the largest philanthropic dynasties in the world." An explosion of shock roared through the crowd. Cheering, applause, flashing lights. The media instantly went wild. Within minutes, headlines blazed across the internet. Amelia Hart, from unknown beauty to billionaire heiress. The secret behind the charity queen, a hidden fortune revealed. Articles followed. Amelia Hart, once branded a gold digger, is revealed to be the heiress of Hart Industries, worth billions. The simple girl who captured Ethan Cole's heart turns out to be the powerful leader of a global charitable empire. Ethan stood frozen, stunned. He stared at her, heart pounding wildly. Amelia, The girl he had met in a self-made dress, the girl who knelt in the dirt to plant seeds with orphans, the girl he loved for her honesty and kindness, was the leader of one of the world's most powerful philanthropic empires. But the shock lasted only a second. Pride swelled in his chest. He wasn't proud of her fortune. He was proud of her heart, the humility with which she had lived, the selflessness she had shown. Amelia faced the reporters, her blue eyes steady. "I am not a spy," she said, her voice firm, "and I never approached Ethan Cole for fame or fortune. I'm here to expose the truth." She held up a thick file of documents. "This is evidence proving that the Marshall Group fabricated the allegations against Ethan Cole and Cole Enterprises. They manipulated the media, falsified documents, and orchestrated a campaign to destroy him for their own gain." Amelia presented emails, financial records, and recordings, all irrefutable proof. The ballroom erupted with cheers and applause. Flashes blazed brighter as reporters captured every second. Marshall Group's lies were laid bare. Public opinion, once hostile, swung sharply in Ethan's favor. Marshall Group, now exposed, became the new target of outrage. New headlines flooded in. "Amelia Hart exposes Marshall Group conspiracy. Hidden heiress defends her love and clears Cole Enterprises' name." Ethan turned to Amelia, his brown eyes shimmering, not with shock anymore, but with overwhelming pride. He stepped forward, wrapped her tightly in his arms before the whole world. "I don't care who you are," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I love you for your heart, Amelia, and I'm so proud of you." Amelia smiled through her tears, her blue eyes glowing. "I was never a spy," she whispered back. "I was always just the woman who loves you." The room exploded into thunderous applause. Cameras flashed relentlessly. But in that moment, Amelia and Ethan saw no one but each other. Their love, true, tested, and unbreakable, shone brighter than any scandal ever could. The press conference at the Four Seasons Hotel ended in an uproar of media frenzy and public shock. Amelia Hart, the woman once labeled a gold digger, had revealed her true identity. Chairwoman of the Hart Foundation, heiress to one of the world's largest philanthropic empires, and the force that exposed Marshall Group's conspiracy, saving Ethan Cole's reputation and that of Cole Enterprises. The media erupted with headlines like, "Amelia Hart, from simple girl to billionaire philanthropist," and "Hidden heiress crushes conspiracy, defends Ethan Cole." Public opinion swiftly turned. Cole Enterprises' stock soared. Marshall Group faced a wave of backlash. Yet amid the flashes and cheers, Amelia and Ethan saw only each other, their blue and brown eyes locking in a silent promise of a love that had endured everything. They left the stage and wandered into a quiet corridor of the hotel, where the soft golden lights above created a peaceful, intimate space, a stark contrast to the chaos they left behind. Ethan held Amelia's hand tightly, his warmth grounding her. His brown eyes shone with pride and adoration. "You are truly extraordinary, Amelia," he whispered, his deep voice thick with emotion. I never imagined you were the chairwoman of the Hart Foundation, but I'm proud of you for your humility, for your heart." Amelia lowered her gaze, her cheeks flushing pink. She squeezed his hand, her voice soft but steady. "Ethan, there's something I need to tell you." He smiled, his brown eyes gentle. "I'm always ready to listen." Taking a deep breath, Amelia looked into his eyes. "I haven't been completely honest about my past," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I told you I was adopted by a woman who taught me about kindness, but I didn't tell you the full truth. That woman was Eleanor Hart, a billionaire philanthropist, founder of the Hart Foundation. When she passed away, she left me her entire fortune, including Hart Industries, a massive empire I never intended to inherit." Ethan froze, a flicker of surprise in his gaze, but he stayed silent, giving her space. Amelia pressed on, her blue eyes shimmering with emotion. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "It wasn't because I didn't trust you. I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for a name or wealth. I was scared that if you knew, you'd look at me differently. But after everything we've been through, I can't hide anymore." Tears welled in her eyes as she bowed her head. "I'm sorry, Ethan. Truly." Without hesitation, Ethan lifted her chin, his brown eyes tender. "Amelia," he murmured, "I don't care about your fortune or your family's legacy. I love you for your heart, for your compassion, for your laughter with the children. I love you for being you, and nothing could ever change that." He smiled warmly, his brown eyes glowing with sincerity. "You have nothing to apologize for. If anything, I'm even prouder of you for choosing a life of humility when you could have chosen luxury." Amelia's lips trembled into a radiant smile, tears of happiness brimming in her blue eyes. She squeezed his hand tightly. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered. "Thank you for always believing in me." Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly against his chest. "Thank you," he murmured, "for walking into my life." In that quiet moment, every misunderstanding melted away, and their love grew deeper, stronger. 3 months later, on a crisp winter evening, Amelia and Ethan hosted a small celebration at Sunshine Haven Orphanage, the place where their hearts had first truly found one another. The playground was decorated with strands of warm golden fairy lights, creating a sparkling canopy overhead. Wooden tables were laden with cookies, hot cocoa, and fresh flowers. The children ran around laughing, their joyous voices filling the crisp air. It wasn't an extravagant gala. It was something infinitely more precious, a night of love, laughter, and simple joy. A night where both Amelia and Ethan felt they truly belonged. Amelia wore a simple white silk dress. Her brown hair flowed freely, adorned with a handmade floral crown, lovingly gifted by the children. She stood in the center of the garden, her blue eyes glowing as she watched the little ones play. Her soft smile warmed Ethan's heart like nothing else could. Ethan, standing a few feet away, couldn't take his eyes off her. Wearing a white rolled-up shirt and black trousers, he looked relaxed yet effortlessly powerful. Watching her surrounded by the children, he knew this was the moment, the perfect moment. Ethan walked toward her, his brown eyes luminous under the golden lights. The children gasped and squealed in excitement as he dropped to one knee in front of her. Amelia froze, her blue eyes wide with wonder. Ethan pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple yet elegant silver ring, set with a delicate blue gemstone, the exact shade of her eyes. "Amelia Hart," he began, his deep voice filled with emotion, "you've taught me that true love doesn't need fame or fortune, that trust can endure any storm, that compassion is the greatest treasure a person can offer." He took a breath, his voice trembling slightly. "I can't promise you the whole world, but I can promise you my world, my heart, my loyalty, my life. Will you marry me?" Amelia stood motionless, tears streaming down her face, not from sorrow, but from overwhelming joy. The children cheered and clapped, some dancing around them in excitement. Laughing through her tears, Amelia bent down and whispered, "Yes, Ethan, 1,000 times yes." Ethan rose to his feet, slipped the ring onto her finger, and swept her into a tight embrace as the garden erupted in celebration. The children ran up, hugging them both, their innocent laughter wrapping around the couple like a blessing. Their love story had become a symbol, not just of romance, but of resilience and truth. They were proof that true love transcends wealth and status, that trust can survive the fiercest storms, that kindness will always outshine cruelty. And under the golden lights of that little garden, surrounded by the laughter of the children they loved, Ethan and Amelia stood hand in hand, hearts forever intertwined. Their love became more than just a story. It became a legend, a reminder that when love is pure, when trust is unbreakable, and when compassion leads the way, no challenge is too great. And that true happiness, the kind that lasts a lifetime, is often found in the simplest, most genuine moments. Under